call this community development meeting to order, Wednesday 19th, 7 p.m. All right, so we're going to have two parts of this meeting because we have a regular agenda we have to go through. I'm going to open it up. We're going to have public comment like we always do. It could be about anything, the cannabis or anything else. And then we're going to recess after the cannabis in case anybody's here just for the cannabis. And then we'll go into our regular agenda. So feel free to come up during public comment for any concern. Our attorney's here tonight. He's going to be taking notes of all concerns brought up. And we're going to try to address as many as we possibly can. So the ordinance is probably still going to be revised. Yeah, Matt, you want to sit up here at one of the spots that's open? Yeah. That way you can write stuff down. So, everybody hear me? Good? All right. So we'll start with the roll call. Alderman Mech?
Here.
Alderman Cantelo?
Here.
Alderman Cazares?
Here.
And Alderman Bilotto, we have a quorum. All right, so again, public comment. Feel free to come up. Just say your name. Resident, non-resident, I'm not going to ask for addresses. Give me your concerns or whatever you have to say, and we can go on as long as people want to talk. I'm going to let people talk as much as they want.
And
I'm glad that I got up here first.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Don't be afraid. Because one of the things that we all want to do is get this right. And that's what everybody has said across the board. You're blessed. This is going to be videotaped. You'll be able to look at the videotape over and over again so that in case you missed anything, you'll be able to get it. Recreational marijuana findings. There are plenty of concerning elements that include the following evidence. A Blue Island public hearing was published in the Southtown only for a date that was an Open Meetings Act violation. That meeting date was not widely published in local newspapers that include the Blue Island Forum, the Beverly Review, Village Voice, or Chicago Tribune. Today's meeting was not published at all. Public notice was not posted on the Blue Island City website. Public notice was not posted on the Blue Island City website with the proposed text amendment as it could and should have possibly been. Public notice was not put on the Blue Island water bills. Public notice was not included in the regular monthly newsletter inserted in the water bills. No planning or zoning meetings have been held with a FOIA and Open Meetings Act trained committee per FOIA request results. Per FOIA request results, not all of our Blue Island City Council members have completed the FOIA and Open Meetings Act training. Per these Open Meetings Act violations, what needs to happen is all individuals need to complete the certification training, then complete the planning and zoning process properly. Yeah, you can't just sort of do this stuff willy-nilly. It's sort of like for our teachers, if your student didn't do their homework the right way, what do you usually do? You make them do it over again. What does the Attorney General's office do? Pretty much the same thing. They don't beat you over the head. They don't find you a gazillion dollars. They tell you, you gotta do it. You gotta do it the right way. I'm sure you're quite familiar with these sorts of things because you work with other municipalities who've made similar mistakes.
We try to avoid mistakes.
Of course. Look, no one is perfect.
To be clear, my understanding is the publication requirement for newspapers is for a zoning hearing. Howard, I believe the zoning hearing occurred how many days, weeks ago?
I believe it was published January 31st, 2020.
So I'll take your word for it. So
okay.
The zoning board there was proper publication for the zoning hearing, which is required under the Illinois Municipal. Tonight is a committee hearing. It is a public body, but it is not regulated under the Section 11-13-1 of the Illinois Municipal Code, which requires the publication. This committee only has to comply with the Open Meetings Act. And sure.
Is this my, is
I
this
believe
mic on?
that,
Okay,
I'll
great.
speak up. I don't know how to work this microphone. So I believe we published notice of this meeting in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, correct? Yes. So again, the newspaper publication requirement is for a zoning board hearing. This is a committee meeting in which the hearing has already occurred. However, they're continuing to take comments and discussion from the public, but this is not the zoning hearing.
Well, I'm talking about the meeting that was published regarding tonight's meeting specifically. And the meeting that was going to occur on Monday was published for this meeting to occur Monday at a specific date and time. And of course, the issue is not just that the citizenry wants to be informed. This is an issue that people want information about, as evidenced by the audience that we have here. I'm sure more people would be in attendance and not just watching from home or trying to pick and choose what meeting they can possibly get to.
All right. I'm going to interject just one section. I should have mentioned it earlier because I have one comment I have to bring up that's in part of this. We had a Finance Committee meeting scheduled at 6 o'clock on Monday, which
Yes.
was a regular meeting, which
Yes.
doesn't violate anything.
Correct.
And I stayed from 7 to 8 p.m. At the front door, I went at 7 o'clock, and there's a few people here tonight that saw me here, and I met with everybody that came. There's only about 3 individuals, 2 about marijuana and 1 about solar panels, that came to that meeting that was originally scheduled. We went above and beyond scheduling that meeting with way in advance notice, putting stuff in the paper, which we never do for committee meetings, just to make it very transparent. We never do it for any committee meeting. It's just 48-hour notice. It was on the website that the date was changed, and it was posted outside, and I came and went above and beyond and sat outside here to see if anybody had come. And there's people in the audience that were here that I met with that night. I'm going to read some of their concerns, but they came anyway.
Good.
So, just making that clear.
Per these Open Meetings Act violations, what needs to happen is all the individuals need to complete the certification training, then complete the, and of course, the planning and zoning needs to complete their certification as well, and basically, you got to do your homework over again. There's no evidence that a recreational marijuana impact study is being worked on or has been completed. Blue Island first responders have not been recreational marijuana trained. The technology is not caught up with the law when it comes to recreational marijuana. There's no comprehensive Blue Island recreational marijuana plan. No Blue Island recreational marijuana educational meetings have been held. All these things really need to be happening simultaneously. And the majority of the reason why it needs to happen simultaneously, particularly in Blue Island, which is different from most of the other communities like Chicago or Midlothian who have recreational marijuana, is the fact that Blue Island is self-insured. None of the committees have told Blue Island taxpayers how recreational marijuana will be paid for. $1 million of recreational marijuana sales will generate $25,000. $25,000. That's not enough to train our first responders, hire an additional part-time police officer, or anything else that I can think of. Blue Island committees are disconnected from the community, Blue Island taxpayers, and that's a problem. The committees are not representing working families and promoting a cancel culture agenda. Do most of you understand what that cancel culture agenda is? Anybody? Everybody? What that means is when people give you information, you poo-poo it. Poo-poo, we don't need that. we don't need to hear that. We're just gonna keep moving forward with our own agenda. It is important that all the people be heard and everyone's opinion be taken into consideration, and that this process move forward cohesively, not a chunk over here and a little chunk over there. That's not going to work. Recreational marijuana, public meetings need to move forward with getting recreational marijuana opt-in and opt-out on the ballot for Blue Island, as some of the taxpayers and voters have requested. Blue Island voters have learned the hard way that Blue Island politicians are not representing or fighting for Blue Island working families, Blue Island voters, and the public. The current corrupt system must be taken down, bad actors voted out, and we must take a stand and never give up. During committee meetings, the primary resident and committee concerns were to ensure transparency and all of the appropriate and proper steps were taken. The process has consistently lacked integrity, principles, honesty, thoughtfulness, and that have been clearly and articulately requested. Blue Island taxpayers deserve better, and Blue Island deserves better. We want to see the best out of this committee, not just this committee, all the committees, planning committee, zoning committee, and the entire city council. We need you to bring the best. Not, oh, well, other communities, well, they just had 1 or 2 meetings, they wrote up an ordinance and just slammed it through. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Mark Kobeck. I'm here as a concerned parent. I'm a teacher, also a community member here. And I guess driving through Blue Island, the main thing that sticks out to me is the vacant lots, the vacant buildings, the empty storefronts. We have struggling small businesses. And then we also have this hospital campus that is empty now, apparently. And all these things are concerning to me. And I think all that is due to the failure of our elected officials to create and maintain a place that not only attracts businesses, but also maintains those businesses. We need to draw industries, we need to draw patrons. So some things about Blue Island that stick out to me is that it's very accessible. First, we're right off the highway. We have several metro train stations that we're not really utilizing to its potential. We also have a lot of small businesses that are kind of unique to this community that I feel are appealing to outsiders as well. And then we also kind of have this historic feel that I think kind of we go with as a way to attract people into our community as well. So with cannabis legalization, it's a new market that's full of opportunity. I just can't see anyone overlooking this opportunity, especially in a community like ours that's struggling to maintain any sort of business. We have gas stations, we have liquor stores. What else? What's really going on? And that's a genuine question because I would love to know. And as we can see in other communities, if you read the news, the demand for cannabis, we can't even meet the supply right now. There's a need for more dispensaries, there's a need for more cultivation. Why not here? And when we think about the benefits of, welcoming marijuana cultivation, welcoming these dispensaries, the main thing that pops up to me is tax dollars, revenue, directly and indirectly. We're going to be drawing tax dollars from the direct sales. We're also bringing new people into the community. And I feel like that's ultimately what we need. We need people to come to our small businesses. We need people to visit our restaurants. Now it's quiet for you, whoever's talking. Think about our schools. Think about the public works. Think about the roads. Think about the things everybody comes in here complaining about. And we have a giant opportunity here, and yet people are resisting. Not only from a financial aspect, we're bringing jobs to the community, and this is going to spread throughout everywhere. We draw more people in. It doesn't mean they're only going to dispensaries. If you drive past any of the existing ones, look at the lines outside. People are pulling up with food trucks trying to sell to people. In a community like ours, where we have so many restaurants within a walking distance, think about the business that that could generate. Think about what that could do for a community like ours that seems to be struggling greatly. And I'm not discounting these concerns. Of course there are concerns. So first, like proximity to schools, and that stands out to me. Like I said, I'm a teacher, I'm a parent. And then also impaired drivers, which is an issue I feel like we're dealing with already anyways. But the main thing that stuck out to me when I saw the pamphlet that was distributed to my home talking about come against the ordinance or whatever, and I don't see a thing on there about liquor stores. I don't see a thing on there about bars. And we want to talk about, oh, we want to shelter and protect our children from the dispensaries. And that's a legit thing I'm asking all of you. You have no problem with the bars? You have no problem with the liquor stores? So
We're listening.
seriously though, seriously, why do we draw the line with marijuana? And as a parent, you know, like, what is my approach to this? Am I just going to shelter my children unsuccessfully? Am I going to avoid the topic? When it's something that's all over the news, it's everywhere. And especially when marijuana is such a huge part of pop culture and mainstream media already. Like, do you think that the fact that there's not a dispensary in a certain location is going to change the fact that marijuana exists? You know? And then, I guess ultimately, you know, it would be very foolish for us to turn away an opportunity like this. Look at all of the space that we have in Blue Island. Why aren't we opening up big greenhouses? Not only for marijuana, but I mean, there's other urban growing operations going on right now. Look at Roseland and Pullman, and they're having like big businesses come in and they're investing in the community and they're producing local food. Why can't we kind of attack this from two directions? You know, we can use the cannabis sales as a way to draw people in, and then we can also try to build off of that and look at other perspectives and cultivating different types of plants. That's kind of a side note, sorry. But the big thing that sticks out to me is I hate driving down the streets. I hate walking to the store and I see empty buildings. The one gas station on Western that still has the paint on the windows, like truly how long has that been sitting there? Like probably maybe longer than I've even been here.
10 years.
And that's alarming to me as a community member with young children. Is this a place where I want to stay and I want to raise my family that seems to be degrading? So I can't believe that this is even a talking point. I can't believe that this is up for debate, whether or not we should welcome this type of business and industry into our community, when what else is there? What else do we have going on? There's a brand new market, and we cannot wait around too long because the dispensaries are already starting to pop up in other places. And if we sit here and we drag our feet, we're going to miss out on big opportunities, and ultimately the community is going to suffer, and so are we.
Thank you.
Hi. This is a good time for me to follow. I went to all the businesses up and down Western Avenue, and downtown Blue Island businesses for a dispensary. The manager at Pub Time, Moraine Valley employees, I'm not a good speaker, so I'm a little nervous. Chris from Iverson's, every employee at the Blue Island Currency Exchange, Joe's Fruit Market, Chicago Nail School, Nina, that is the manager, Raeann, who owns the UPS store, signed, Maria from the owner of Blue Island Nutrition, Marvin from DMars Design signed, every employee at Corona Mortgage and the other side signed, Leonardo from State Farm, Maria from Alexis Beauty Shop, Kathy from Flowers by Kathy, Juan from La Dolce Bakery, The people working in Three Sisters, they all signed. New Look Hair Salon, the owner from the furniture market signed. Harry's Long Bar, he wasn't there, but his employees signed. Greg from Franklin Place, the Mexican restaurant La Castilla, the owner there signed. Chris from TNG's Euros signed. Steve from Corbacus signed. Dale from George Allen Shoe signed. Mike Carey, the lawyer, signed from his office. Double Play, I've spoken with Tommy, he's in agreement, his employees signed. There's not one person who works in Blue Island or has a business that doesn't need this. And another point I want to make, I want it during a weekday between 11 and 12 o'clock, because my restaurant was so slow, I was able to leave with only 2 people working. Corbacus, one customer. Rocky had 1 customer. The Currency Exchange had no customer. Iverson's had not 1 customer. The fruit market had not 1 customer. A couple people were getting their hair cut. A couple of the other beauty shops, nobody. The ice cream shop, not 1 customer. The Mexican restaurant, not 1 customer. Molino's, not 1 customer. I'm not exaggerating. This is what happened. T&G's, when I walked in, not 1 customer. Finally, when I got finished talking with Chris, a customer walked in, okay? People are worried about the schools. People leave bars, they're drunk, or they could be drunk, or they've had a few drinks, okay? I don't want to say people get drunk every time they go to a bar, but they leave and they're by schools, and that's okay, but somebody can't walk into a dispensary and take their product home and use it. It's not like they're going to be using it there. It's just not logical. It's legal. It's the law. I mean, we have Cook County Medical opening up down the streets, okay, and hopefully another hospital. Now, these doctors, they prescribe to our veterans, to our senior citizens, to cancer patients. These people no longer have to go through the state of Illinois to get a license and go and, do all that inconvenience. I have a family member, and it's a hassle, especially for a senior or somebody that's depressed or somebody that has PSTD. Who are people trying to keep out of town here? What's going on? Do the people want, is it the young people? Do they want them calling drug dealers or going in alleys or going behind your garage or something like that? I mean, it's just not logical. Gosh, there's just so much to say about this. It's going to be so mainstream in the next 5 years, not even. In the state of Illinois, like I said, it's legal. And we're going to be like, what were we even talking about or worrying about? There's a lot of security. There's going to be cameras. There's going to be security guards. No one's going to get in there under the age of 21, just like no one's supposed to get into a bar under the age of 21. You're going to have ID. I just don't understand. The businesses here are really struggling. I mean, I know DMARS is, and DMARS has been there long before me, since 1950. I know that TNG's is, I mean, everybody's having a hard time, especially since that hospital closed down. It's really, really rough, and I just don't understand why people wouldn't want it here. People like to think anybody that's using cannabis now, they're going to use it. I mean, they're using it now if they want to. Kids, young people, I can't believe that anybody under the age of 60, very few people, I would say, never tried it, okay? They've gone on to become presidents. President Obama used it. He's a president. President Clinton used it. They admit these things. It's not some sort of crazy drug that's going to make you jump onto heroin or something like that. People that drink are way more aggressive, some people, okay? People that smoke marijuana, it's just not the case. And I'm telling you, every single business in Blue Island wants this. And we don't want it tucked away back in some industrial area so they can go there and take off out of town. And why should, when the patients leave Cook County Medical, why should they have to drive out of Blue Island when the doctor prescribes? And my husband has Parkinson's, and he tells us all the time, because we have a family member with a medical card. He says, try this, try that, try this, okay? Now my husband can go and actually tell the people, I mean, he could have gotten a medical card, but we just didn't need to. But they can go in there and tell them what they want, and then they can assist them with their needs. I mean, why do they have to go someplace else to do it? This is supposed to be such a big medical community. People will use it for medical purposes. So I mean, I guess that's it. I just don't understand the logic. It's legal. It's passed. It's over. It's done. I mean, what's the, I don't understand what the drama is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't like public speaking, but here I am. My name is Larry Goretto from Becker's Pizza. And my family's been proud business owners for 70 years in Blue Island. I've been very proud to call Blue Island my first store. I tell people Blue Island all the time, and it might be a secret, but I've been applying for a couple cannabis licenses. And the reason we have to hurry is because the March 16th is a deadline for cultivation. You miss that deadline, nobody's coming to Blue Island. And I appreciate you. This is what's great about America. You can say what you say. I appreciate the young man, what he says. And I want to do is what I want to do. I've been proud to be in Blue Island. I want to continue to Blue Island. I want to bring people to Blue Island. And I want to do it right. I think I'm qualified, and my group is qualified to do this thing right. So that's what I'm worried about. I have kids. I don't want to sell them to 15-year-olds. I want to do it right. So when it came available, I said, well, my kids are interested in it. I will help them back them up. And I want to make sure this town gets the right company to do it in town. Okay, but that's why I chose to fight for Blue Island. I have applied for multiple licenses. I'm fortunate enough to even to get one. Blue Island's been my heart all my life. I want to earmark 2% of my sales, whatever the profit, to help charitable organizations, people learning about cannabis. I want to educate people. I mean, it's very safe. I know that a lot of people don't know about it. I know a lot more than I used to know about it because I've taken classes now because to apply for it, you have to take a class. So I know it's way safer than a bar. You can't get into a place without the right ID. There's got to be a guard there. If you have one person working the counter, only one person can go in there. There's a lounge where they can sit in, but only one person at a time can be taken care of by a bud tender, which is really good service. And they're supposed to be educated on, you go there for knee pain or your anxiety. They know what's best for you. And I'm an ex-smoker, so if I was to buy it, I haven't tried it yet, but if I was to buy it, it'd have to be an edible, because I don't want to smoke again. I mean, if anybody quits smoking, it's not easy to quit smoking, so I don't want to start again. So I appreciate your concern, because I want to do it right. That's all I care about, is doing it right for the city of Blue Island. As your estimated sales, young lady, I appreciate your concern too, but I used to go to Bread and Bottle for candy when I was a kid. I would run across 119th Street, get penny candy, okay? It was my favorite place, okay? And now it looks like a little bit of ice, so I understand that, okay? But all the kids went there for penny candy. So I've been here a long time, so I mean, 65 years I was running over there for candy. But it's not $1 million in sales. The expected sales are $15 million. So I mean, that brings in way more than $25,000. You don't really need to train your police to guard it. You can't smoke it there. You're not coming out high. They're going home and getting high, hopefully, or whatever. So it's not a lounge. You know, I mean, I've drank in my life. I've been drunk. I can't say I never did. So I'm not very good at speaking. But the reason that has to get done is March 16th is the deadline. And if we miss that, they're going. I mean, we're already visiting a couple towns now because it hasn't passed here yet. And we can't take a chance. So I mean, we have to look around. I know the city will do what's best for the city, and I think this is best to get people back into town, like the young man said. I get sick of driving down Western. I've been here for 40 years. I've been in business. 45 years I've been selling pizzas, and people come up with IDs to get people here. This is a new beginning. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everybody in this room tonight because you're here to hear about this, which is great. Okay. I just wanted to say a few things, that's all. And maybe the cat's out of the bag now because Beggar's Pizza is applying for a cannabis license. And I've been trying to keep it a secret. But, pizza? No, I'm not sure. You gave me that name a couple months ago, okay? So, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I appreciate you guys listening to me. I'm sorry I turned my back on you, but I'm not good for speakers. But I appreciate everybody in this room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann Spadoni. I've been a resident of Blue Island for 33 years. And like I said, it's very sad to see what's happening here. All these closed businesses, we need to do something. We pass on this, we keep dragging our feet, we're gonna be screwed. It's that simple. As far as being close to schools, no, we don't want it right next to a school, but look at, you have the parking lot for a bar that shares a parking lot with a school. You're worried about the dispensary, really? People can't go in there and smoke the pot or do the edible there. They have to go somewhere else. But they can walk out of this bar loaded. I mean, really, think about it. And as far as the edible goes now, I've been through cancer. I've been in the infusion room getting my chemo. 9 out of 10 people there would rather do an edible than smoke it. We need to have the edibles. They're not geared towards children. And for children to get that, they can't, like kids can sit in the parking lot and have people buy from, like we all did when we were kids in the liquor store. That's not gonna happen, there's security. We wait around any longer, we're gonna be in trouble.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Keener. A lot of my opinions have already been expressed in the Blue Island Forum newspaper, on flyers that went out from the CASA organization. But there's some really important things that folks need to realize and take account of passing an ordinance. The ordinance that's on the table right now is flawed from a legal standpoint. It falls into the trap that a lot of that was set for us by the state of Illinois. I know, because the laws that were passed and also the sample that you used for the ordinance that you have before you is based on the state recommendations, and it's got some flaws. As we've heard just now, and as all of you know very well, we have a real long history of problems with what we write down as policy and what actually gets enforced. You know, people with our enforcement of our liquor laws, with bars and liquor stores, we've had a lot of disparity of enforcement, where some people like Adam Shorter will get victimized in the process, and then other people will be guilty of breaking the law and not have the weight of the city fall down on them. Okay, if you write an ordinance, you need to have teeth in it so that the enforcement is fair and equitable and just for everybody involved. You know, citizens in Blue Island are tired of this unequitable enforcement of our policies. With the zoning laws, people were joking and laughing about the portion of the law and the ordinance that talks about parking lots. You know, like, oh, well, we've always had a problem with parking lots. You just write a variance, or you just don't enforce the law that you have. That's what's before you right now, is an ordinance that you cannot enforce. That's a problem, needs to get fixed.
So is your concern, when you're saying it's not enforceable, is it related to parking? That's your concern?
Parking is a small concern. More to the point is the who do you give licenses to, and what happens to them when they break the law? If something does go wrong there, you know, what is the consequence for that? You know, in Adam Shorter's case, he lost his license when there was a problem at his bar. Other bars, when there's a problem, it gets swept under the table. Okay, so that's because we have a very flexible way of enforcing our laws. If you're going to write an ordinance, you got to make it so that there's reasonable rules and that they can be enforced, and that those reasonable rules actually stick. What you've got before you right now is, oh, you can write down anything because if so-and-so applies for a license, we'll just take it to the building and planning. They'll write us a variance and we'll get to do whatever we want anyway. Okay, that's not the kind of ordinance I want passed.
Well, the issues of enforcement, what we're here on tonight is about the regulations that are going to be in the zoning code.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you're talking about are two different things. The language that will be the law, and then there's enforcement. Okay, we're here tonight to deal with the language that's going to be in the law. I can't address enforcement. That is an administration issue. So now we're dealing with the language, and you said you had some concerns about parking. What aspects of the parking are you concerned about? Because this is the forum to address it with them, because changes can still be made.
Right, if you're not gonna have any reasonable rules about parking, then just don't put them in the ordinance. If you're gonna have rules about parking that you cannot enforce, and that you don't put into the ordinance a mechanism to enforce them, then you don't need to put it in there.
Right, so.
Don't lie, don't make a joke about it, just don't do it.
Well, I'm just trying to, what aspect of parking do you feel is unenforceable, of the parking regs do you feel is unenforceable?
Well, because if somebody wants to open a shop, yeah, if somebody wants to open a shop on the Western Avenue between Vermont and 127th, you know, there's not enough parking for the small amount of customers that we have now. So obviously, putting some regulation in this ordinance about how many parking spaces this cannabis dispensary needs, it's a joke. So it shouldn't be in there. If you're not gonna make a reasonable rule, don't put it in there, because I think we should have an ordinance that you could actually enforce, and there should be provisions in the ordinance spelling out exactly what you're gonna do to enforce it.
So,
Is a dispensary that breaks the law, or breaks not only state law, but the municipal guidelines and the zoning, are they gonna be subject to a fine? Are they gonna lose their license and get kicked out of town? What exactly is gonna happen? That's not in this ordinance at all.
well, taking your example, if there's a location that someone wants to open a dispensary, and the site doesn't comply with the parking regs, it would be unable to receive its zoning permit to locate there, because it's not complying with the parking regulations.
Well, if everyone's eager to bring these businesses into town, and these businesses have close connections with the state or the local governments in order to get those licenses, then the city council and the planning and the buildings boards will bend over backwards to give them the variance they need to locate here anyway. Okay, so that, I don't think this should be a joke. I think this should be spelled out, and it should have a basis in reality. You can't just write a variance for everything that you want to give a approval to. And that's what this ordinance looks like. Looks like all the other ordinances we have for, you know, for bars and liquor stores and whatever else. We went through the same thing about the pawn stores.
So just to be clear, it seems the bigger issues is enforcement. It's not so much the language, it's the enforcement of the language.
That is an issue, yes, one of the issues. Another issue is too that there's kind of an impression that this is a pro-marijuana or an anti-marijuana discussion. And it seems clear to me that the law enforcement in Blue Island will continue to do what we've been doing, harassing cannabis smokers, seizing their assets. I mean, we just bought a new police car with, you know, money that we've taken from people who violated, you know, marijuana smoking laws. You know, so I see no indication that's gonna change. So Blue Island, you know, on the one hand, we're handing out dispensary licenses, on the other hand, we're seizing people's property when they smoke marijuana that comes off of the black market. There's nothing in this discussion I've heard so far talking about what's gonna happen. What's the impact of this with the black market? When the city of Blue Island wants to go into competition with the people who are running the marijuana sales currently, you know, what's gonna happen? What's the impact of that? How is law enforcement gonna deal with that? Or is there gonna be some kind of a turf war over marijuana sales in town? You know, nobody's talked about that or what its impact is. Or what about our dependency treatment center? I mean, affordable recovery housing is being persecuted by the city. They're trying to run them out of town. So on the one hand, we're selling marijuana and at the same time running treatment centers out of town. You know, when actually, well, that would be a real good time to you know, bring them all together, but that's not what we're doing. So there's lots and lots of flaws and shortcomings with this ordinance. This thing needs to be drastically redone. And if there's a timetable, if there's a time limit constraint on people, you need to really get on your homework.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Raeann Cantelo. lifelong resident of Blue Island, I think everyone needs to be educated regarding this the whole cannabis ordinance and everything. The one beautiful thing about an ordinance is if you put an ordinance in place today and it doesn't work, you could adjust that ordinance tomorrow. You could bring it back to the council, it could be adjusted. I think people are getting kind of like misled on state statutes, local ordinances, and preferences. So there's a lot of things that we need to discuss. We're talking about, right now we're discussing dispensaries. Dispensaries is one thing, craft grow is completely another, transportation is another. You gotta kind of educate yourself and everyone around you. When we're talking about dispensaries, those licenses aren't gonna be awarded until, I believe, June 1st. We're spinning our wheels in this room right now. 47 licenses in the Chicagoland area. When I say Chicagoland area, we're going from Elgin to the lake, all the way down, I think, the like, almost Kankakee area. 47 licenses are gonna be awarded. We would be ecstatic if Blue Island could get one person to be excited, to come to Blue Island. And we're talking, no, we're gonna get all these people, we're gonna have dispensaries every block. I love Blue Island. I love Blue Island. I wanna be in Blue Island. We're not getting 10 of them wanting to come to Blue Island. I'm sorry. I mean, listen, if there's 5 people that wanna go to Blue Island, why wouldn't you just go to another surrounding town? We should be ecstatic if we could get one person out of those 47 to come to our town and spend the money. I know it says we're not gonna bring a lot of money to this town. It will bring a lot of money to this town. That's one whole other thing. There's no time frame on that one. Don't worry about it. I know it's all in one ordinance. You gotta pass it. The number one thing we gotta look at is, Alderman Bilotto, what is, in a perfect world, when will this get to the city council floor? In a perfect world.
Perfect world?
What's the quickest it get to the city council floor?
Quickest is always 48-hour notice.
40-hour notice, I'll tell you, there are municipalities that are having special meetings to get it on there. When Mr. Goretto said March 16th, March 16th is too late. That is the last day to stand to file your application. We're very fortunate to apply for numerous dispensary licenses. We are going after the craft grow license. We've got a wonderful team together. I like to joke around with people. I'm the weakest link. And I'm far from being the weakest link anywhere. You have until March 16th to file. But unlike the dispensaries, and I'm gonna try to educate everyone here, unlike the dispensaries, a craft grow, you need to have a location. How does locations work? You need to have some type of LOI with whoever owns that property. Now there's another little twist here. If there's a mortgage on that property, the mortgage company's got to sign off on it. So now you got to get the owner of the property to sign off on that property, the mortgage company to sign off on the property. There's some hoops to jump through there. Why would I focus on Blue Island when you don't have an ordinance in place? Once you get that one done, you say, wow, I got a property, secure. Now you got to come to the city. I believe, and don't hold me to this one, I believe one person can sign off on it, and it's the mayor of the town, or the executive, or whatever, however you want it, whatever the wording is, has to sign off on a piece of paper saying, we will allow you, when you say you, your corporation, your company, to bring a craft grow to the Blue Island or your municipality if you're awarded a property. So now there's a lot of things you have to do. What's today, the 19th? We're less than a month away. 28 days, 29 days, we're losing out real quick. Unlike a lot of products, and I know this is gonna be completely wrong to say, it's like almost double taxation. You grow, you have all the buds come up, you sell, you get taxed. The craft grow gets taxed. That drives money to your municipality. You sell it to the different dispensaries throughout the state of Illinois. And that's gonna be another thing we're gonna talk about. You sell it to the different dispensaries in the state of Illinois. When someone walks in there, over the age of 21, because if their cameras are off, and I'm gonna get into the whole security things too. I can sit and talk for hours. I hope you guys don't have jobs and go there tomorrow morning, because I have absolutely no order to make it. You know, I'm going to, please. If you're willing to listen, unless I'm on a clock up here, if the cameras are off in the dispensary, the doors are locked. If the security guard's not there, the doors are locked. If the bud tender has to go home for whatever reason, the doors are locked. And they have to be licensed people. It's not like, hey, I gotta go home, Johnny, can you come cover me for an hour? That doesn't cut it. It's a regulated business. And you're not messing with it, because these licenses are gonna be worth a lot of money. So if I gave you a lot of money, it says, you secure your money, you're not gonna let someone walk in there, take your money and walk away with it. So you gotta follow the rules. So all these things that we're talking about and spinning wheels are not true, okay? I know we can say, hey, I wanna make sure you have 2 security guards there, I wanna have this, I wanna have lighting. There's statutes, we gotta follow. So once you get to the dispensaries and you sell, a lot of tax there. Now I'm gonna exaggerate. If you buy something about $100, it's gonna be about $175 for that item. I know it's not all going back to the city blind, everyone has got their hands in this one. There's a lot of tax money that's gonna go back to the city. Is that the way you wanna raise money? I don't see people pound down on the door to open up a lot of businesses in this town. I don't see a lot of things happening in this town. In a lot of suburbs, people aren't doing it. So why don't we take advantage of the opportunity that we've been given? But it all comes down to the city council. You gotta do the right thing. So, that sounds like a lot of money. So when we're talking about $25,000, never heard that in my life. I don't think people are gonna be spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to apply for licenses if there isn't any money to be made. Why are municipalities trying to pass all these ordinances for $25,000 a year? It sounds like a waste of your time, because there's a lot of money to be made, you know, and that's the way it is. Then there's transportation. If you don't have transportation in there, there's a company out there that's only going after transportation licenses. How do you get it from the craft grow to the dispensaries? I'm gonna call my buddy, Alderman Bilotto, and say, hey, can you swing by with your car and pick up this and drive it somewhere else? Absolutely not. It's inventoried. Everything that's grown is inventoried. Everything that gets delivered is inventoried. Everything that's received is inventoried. And it's not like just checking things off. It's all regulated. Things aren't disappearing. If they don't match the items in there, it all gets destroyed. And you have to have records of it. So it's not something that we're like, oh, what are we gonna do about this? Your job is to have the correct ordinance. And if you look around this whole town, there's not a lot of places in Blue Island that craft grow is gonna be even allowed. If you read your ordinance, it's reading everything. So I think we really, I think we're spinning a lot of wheels here.
So the transportation, it is a special use in the I-1 and I-2.
Okay. So that's, are you allowing those to be in the same facility as the craft grow? You don't look like Dexter Johnson either.
That transportation organization shall be the sole use of the tenant space in which it is located. So, as currently drafted, a transportation organization would have to be a standalone facility. There is a co-location provisions in subsection 10, be page 13 of the proposed ordinance. Co-location of cannabis business establishments. The city may approve the co-location of an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization with a craft grower or an infuser, or both, subject to special criteria. In a co-location, the floor space requirements of subsection 5E and 6D shall not apply, but the co-located establishments shall be the sole use of the tenant space. So the transportation would have to, is currently drafted as a standalone. There can be co-location between dispensing, craft grow, and infusion.
Okay. You guys all know what infusing is? All right, I just want to make sure. I don't know, because it just seems like people are going in the wrong direction. Infusing is all your edibles, making anything that is non-dry product. So, but the problem is with that, what you just said there, it's a wonderful idea, great, be separate. You gotta make sure that, you want the transportation. It's gonna be it's gonna be a huge item, and some of the municipalities had it worded exactly the way you did, and they've actually put it back in there and said, they're just calling it a special use, has to be approved, the transportation area, or whatever you wanna call it, has to just be approved by the,
So to be clear, though, I'm
Please.
understanding you're asking that transportation be permitted to be co-located. It's not that
Yes.
it's not allowed in the city.
Yes.
You're saying it should be.
I believe so,
co-located.
yes. And when people are thinking it, they are basically armored cars. They're sprint vehicles, or whatever you want to call, generically speaking, like the white vans, beefed up, with a little bit more security than a van driving down the street. I wouldn't say completely as armored car as much, but something very similar to that. And I assume all the aldermen that are here have done their homework, have done a lot of research on it. I'll be more than happy to answer any question I can, and if not, I'll do my best to get the answers back to you. But we're down to, if this is something that the city really wants, this is something the city really needs to move on it like a while ago. And back when you guys had the meeting back in December, I said, we're gonna get into this thing, that we're gonna be talking about this in February, and how quick can we get this moving? Because it's easy to point the finger. I live here. I'm not trying to go to go to this town from another town here. I live in this town. I think it's one of the best things that could happen here, and drive a lot of money into this town. Mr. Greta was talking about it. We have our application, it was so impressive sitting there when you read this application of how the money's gonna be spent. Sure, does everyone want to make money? Absolutely. Who wants to ever do anything for free? But knowing how we're giving the money back to the community, how we're giving it to different organizations and different things, and having different educational programs set up, I was personally on the phone with every. I'm sorry. I was on the phone with local grade schools, high schools, colleges, just to see how we could give back. So it's not loaded on one side. It's how to give it back. Once again, hey, something, we might be spinning our wheels. This town would be fortunate to be able to get one person to come here with a license. That's it. Any questions? I'll be more than happy. I know I'm not supposed to open up for questions. I'm supposed to be here to make comments. But I'll tell you, I'm changing the rules.
We relaxed the rules before you came in.
Did
But
you?
if anybody's got any questions? No?
Seriously? I'll be back here. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I apologize. The one question you're supposed to ask is, what type of capital are you looking to bring into this town? Mr. Bilotto, or Alderman Bilotto, can you ask me that question?
What kind of capital are you planning?
For the cultivation alone, we have $10 million earmarked to bring into this town for capital, investment. 10 million. Imagine, 10 million. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You cannot call a bank and say, can I get $10 million? So $10 million is earmarked to bring to Blue Island. We'd be fortunate to have someone spend that kind of money here. And it's not a fake number. It's hard numbers. And if you want to sit out on the side, I don't want to get too far into it because you don't want to show all your cards. I'll break it down for you, where the 10 million comes from. So, and for the amount of licenses, we're looking to have about a $20 million investment when it's all said and done. So that's where the direction we're going right now. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hello, my name is John Staub. I've been a Blue Island resident for over 30 years. I'd like to thank this committee for allowing this public hearing on this very controversial subject. And thank you too for the work that you do on this committee for our city. I'd like to share with you 5 reasons why this committee and our council should oppose marijuana use in dispensaries in our community. Number 1 is a national health warning. Last August, the U.S. Surgeon General's office issued an advisory against marijuana use by teens and pregnant women. and said that frequent marijuana use during adolescence is associated with changes in the areas of the brain involved in attention, memory, decision-making, and motivation. Chronic use is linked to declines in IQ, school performance that jeopardizes professional and social achievements and life satisfaction. Marijuana use is also linked to risk for and early onset of psychotic disorders, such as schizophrenia. Point number 2, for every $1 gained in tax revenue in Colorado, the citizens there spent $4.50 to mitigate the effects of legalization. Point number 3, the closeness of dispensaries. Living near marijuana dispensaries makes and tempts the youth more likely to use it. According to a study by the Rand Corporation, young adults who live in neighborhoods with a higher number of marijuana dispensaries use pot more frequently than peers and have more positive views about the drug. Point number 4 is property crime. Marijuana dispensaries impact crime. Property crime increased in areas that were adjacent to marijuana dispensaries. The 3-year study found that crime in cities like Denver happened in neighborhoods a tenth of a mile or farther from the dispensary, depending on population density. The study revealed the average property crime increased by 100 cases per month during the years when marijuana transitioned from medical to recreational in Colorado. It might be the people going to these dispensaries potentially looking for crimes of opportunity. Point number 5 is public safety concerns. Illinois law allows on-site consumption of marijuana at dispensaries. After people smoke marijuana, they'll get in their cars and they're going to start driving. Car crashes, DUIs could increase in municipalities with dispensaries, let alone people wandering into the streets and getting hit. Our city government at one time has issued 44 video gambling licenses in our city. Currently, right now, we have 29, and we're saturated in Blue Island with over 142 video gambling machines. Since the inception of video gambling machines in Blue Island, over $30 million has been lost in these machines. This is money that could have been spent in grocery stores and our restaurants. And just January alone, last month, $500,000 was lost. Along with problems associated with gambling, do we now want to increase the possibilities of addictions and crime to become known as the city of pot and potholes? I encourage this committee and our city council to work harder to restore our boarded up storefronts. It's already been discussed, with quality, family-friendly businesses which would attract a larger consumer base, including young people under the age of 21. Over 15 Illinois communities have opted out from recreational marijuana business and sales. We haven't discussed this yet. We don't have to fall in line with Governor Pritzker. We still have the option to opt out of this. I asked this committee and council to opt out from marijuana use and business in Blue Island. And another thing you have to be reminded, it's not what we want, it's what is best for our community. You have a responsibility. Government has a responsibility to protect its citizens and not exploit them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone on the board here, and good evening, everyone here. I want to address a couple of things that the sir right before me. Oh, sorry, I'm Furman Diaz. I was born here, so I'm a native to Blue Island. I think that this is going to be a very invigorating time for Blue Island, and I think there's a lot of opportunity we can go ahead and seize, like the gentleman over here said earlier, and Mr. Guerrero in the back. And I think that the big thing is that we're all afraid of something that we don't know quite yet. But I will like to assure you guys that there has been a lot of culmination of knowledge that we've had over the other economies that have already gone ahead and invested into this. We have Amsterdam, I've been there, and I got to see what they do there, and they actually have places of consumption that actually I think makes it more normalized, but not in the sense of addiction, but more so in like the way an Italian would go and have a glass of wine with dinner, not become an alcoholic, right? So Colorado did have a bit of mishaps. They also had drive-throughs, and I know California has some vending machines. We don't actually allow those, and I kind of like the construct that Illinois has had for us in the sense that it's very conservative. So we're not allowing these things. We're actually taking a very safe approach, like not having enough cannabis. That was a construct as well, so we don't have an oversupply as we're seeing over in Oregon at the moment. So everything's falling in line. I think that what Illinois is really looking for, Springfield, right, is looking for, is for leaders in the industry to go ahead and push this in a direction that we can make the best out of it. So what I think Blue Island really does need is a place to congregate and consume this safely, and a place to really, you know, create a space that we can all engage together in this new, I guess, habit, or not. I don't want to make it sound habitual, right? But like this new, you know, bit of joy we get to have. People have their drinks. Some people like to enjoy a bit of marijuana. So I think that'd be the best thing to pursue in Blue Island, to make this whole strip we have here that people are claiming is dying down be reinvigorated, have new investments by people actually walking the streets after they've already had their bit of joy, right? And go maybe buy some fresh fruits or buy some ice cream or whatever they might enjoy at the moment. So I am going to be pursuing a craft grow license, and this is with my team over here in the back. We're currently undergoing a name change, but we are hopefully looking for any places that would be fitting for that type of facility. And just would love any input you can provide us before we actually move forward with that. We'd love to consider Blue Island as a place to start the business, but obviously we are looking around because we do want to make sure we pass everything by March 16th, which is the deadline for everything to be filled out, not just the zoning to be figured out, but more so everything with the attorney, all the, you know, quotes we have to get from security, which we have to have a building layout already planned out, and obviously we want to have a realistic approach to this by having an actual building or plot of land in mind, not just something that's drawn up on some ambiguous idea that we have. So that's kind of where I'm standing on this. One more note, this is kind of a side note from the zoning, but like I was saying, the place to consume this would be a lounge of sorts. I know Illinois has allowed tobacco sales, like head shops, to actually have a little lounge area. I think that's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird workaround, but I think that we can definitely find a place to make these lounges available as soon as possible. Now, Illinois has not provided a licensing for this sort of establishment, but I think that they're leaving like I said, to the local legislatures to figure that out and to really push the conversation forward in that really beneficial way. So that's what I wanted to leave off on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm stepping away from my position as chairman. On Monday night, Jeanette Hoyt was here, and she couldn't make tonight's meeting. I promised I would present on behalf of her, but she left us. She is a resident here on Maple Avenue. She's very concerned about the marijuana dispensaries causing a rise in crime in the area that they're located in, and the edibles concerns also brought by the Keeners. And I said I'd bring it up in public comment that she wants to be on record as being against, and the committee should reconsider allowing this in town. So I'll step back. All right.
Hi, my name is Tanya Rodriguez. I've been a lifetime resident here in Blue Island. I just want to touch on two different things, actually. The first thing is I work in commercial real estate. I've been working in commercial real estate for 20 years. And as Mr. Guerretto and Mr. Cantello mentioned, people are looking for locations now. And they're looking at cities now. So if we don't figure this out quick, we're going to lose out. Because as he mentioned, you know, as towns around us start getting dispensaries, there's a chance that Blue Island may not get one at all if we don't figure this out quick, because licenses and permits are being given out now. The second thing I want to mention is, you know, we talk about all the empty storefronts in Blue Island, and everyone seems to love to blame, you know, the city and the aldermen and that for those empty storefronts, and it has nothing to do with that. every retailer has demographics that they require in order to open up a location. And Blue Island doesn't have those demographics currently for those national chains. And I truly believe that by bringing this into it, bringing the cannabis into it, bringing some more revenue into town, will then bring our demographics up. It'll bring people into town, it'll bring the revenue into town, our demographics will get stronger, and then we'll be able to bring those national chains. And if we just keep talking like we are, and keep delaying it, we're just gonna completely miss out. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. I'd like to piggyback unrelated topic Ms. Rodriguez just brought up about the census, about demographics. It's very true. I talked to multiple people in the Census Bureau. It's later on our agenda today. It's been on our agenda how we can support the census, but it's very important that everybody's counted because it helps with demographics. Our response rate in 2010 was terrible, especially for neighboring towns. We are lower income to all our neighbors, which is hard to believe in some cases, but it's true because we didn't respond, and the rates they responded with, they take averages at the time. So it's very important that we participate in the census. I'm just piggybacking off her comments about demographics for large businesses. I was approached by Starbucks, but they're looking at North 119th Street because they said our income demographics is right below where they're looking at. And the difference between us and 119th, there's only a few $1,000s family income. So I'll be talking more about this later on in the agenda. I've been talking about it, but make sure when the census stuff comes out, we all participate. Continuing with public session, our former alderman, Miss Nancy Thompson.
Good evening. Since he's told you who I was, Nancy Thompson. To the committee, thank you for being here to listen to what we have to say today. And thank you, CASA organization, for passing out the flyer in the neighborhood to let us know what's going on here. I spoke about this at one of the city council meetings earlier about one establishment. Since I noticed 119th Street would be a very viable place. And there is one establishment was known as the Bread and Bottle Liquor Store, which was the most outrageous business in the entire city of Blue Island. It gave everybody on the north end of Blue Island headaches for 25 years. We were assaulted in that neighborhood with liquor. And I'm asking the committees, anyone who's desiring to open up anything on 119th Street that was previously the Bread and Bottle store, please don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want the nightmare in the city of Blue Island where I have lived, and I've been in this town 63 years. I'm too old to tolerate the type of things that was going on there. So if this cannabis brings in all of the terrible things that happen there, prostitution, selling the liquor to children, this happened with this cannabis, I don't want to see it. And since 119th Street, I don't know particular where you want to do this, please exclude the previous establishment that was known as the Bread and Bottle. Please do. And I want to remind one person who said about a law, it's the law. Slavery was the law once upon a time in this United States of America. And an unjust law, by Dr. King said, is no law at all. And we have to remind ourselves, if we're so money-strapped, I've seen so many things in this town in 63 years that I've lived here, and we've always needed money. We didn't have enough money to do this, that, and the other. And we resort to so many things that some other people had just mentioned. The gambling, the liquor. What are we gonna resort to next? We bring in the cannabis. Are we gonna do like we do in Vegas? Are we gonna legalize prostitution? That brings in money too. What are we going to do next? We're talking about all the monies. We need all the monies. Yes, it was a great idea when we had the lottery. It was going to help the school, was it not? We know how that happened. What happened there, don't we? The schools. We still need things for our schools, don't we? Yes. The lottery didn't do it. So we find many ways of making money, the idea. But who is going to benefit from it? Not the little people like me. Other people, if I can see where the cannabis would bring in enough revenue to lower my water bill and my taxes, good. That's a great idea. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. And all the time I was an alderman, it was about money. We're money strapped. No matter what comes in this town, it never generates enough revenue for us. We see our streets. We see things that need to be done. But we never have enough monies, do we? So let's think about that again. When we think about bringing cannabis and all the things that it will bring with it, think about it. You're the guys who are going to decide. For us in this town, your job is to listen to the citizens of this town and represent the people in your ward. Please do it. Represent us. Thought about the people who want to fill their pockets full of money. We know where the majority of the money is going. I've been there on the inside and I know. So please let the little guy benefit from something that we want to make all of this money with. This big thing of money. I doubt it very much. And if it's big money, it's not coming to the little guy. It's going to the same people the big things about money went in previous years. Believe you me. Watch it, Alderman. Do your job. Listen to the little people and let us benefit from something. But I doubt it very much. If you get this in this town, it's going to benefit the little people. Thank you for tolerating Nancy Johnson. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Alderman, fellow residents.
Good evening.
Mrs. Thompson's a hard act to follow. Item number 3. I'm requesting that the committee table this. It was unfair process, quid pro quo, and can you please advertise and make it fair to everyone? Thank you. Can you answer a question for me, Chairman Bilotto?
Mr. Steven?
I'm here talking. Are you paying attention to me?
I'm actually looking into one of your requests. Go on.
On the agenda, what's important to me tonight, and probably 90% of the people here in Blue Island, why is it not on your agenda, opening up of the Metro South Hospital? That should be on your agenda every month. What progress have you made? That's what's important to most of the people here in Blue Island. It doesn't appear on the agenda.
I agree with you.
Have you forgotten about it?
No. We ran out of space.
Ran out of space. Did you also run out of space? Why did you not accept the $5 million? Why did your committee not accept the $5 million that Quorum Health Metro South wanted to give to Blue Island? We could have had new ambulances, fire trucks, paid our first responders more money, had more first responders.
Mr. Steven, you asked the same questions last month, and I'll say the same thing again this month. Just on the surface, the easiest answer for me to say is they're a tax-paying member of this community, and they pay almost that much in yearly taxes.
No, they don't, that's
All
not
right.
true.
So secondly, there's
That's
a lot of
not true.
executive
That's a false
session.
statement.
There was executive session discussions on property acquisition that I can't release in public. All right? It's on the forefront of every elected official in this town about the big hospital that's right across from where my kids go to school. So for you to address the same issue every single month, it's not on the agenda, no, but it's on everybody's forefront. We've been thinking about it. So,
I'm bringing it up because I
Go
want to
on.
hold you accountable.
I
You need to be
agree.
held accountable.
Well, I appreciate
We could have had the $5 million. You just playing politics. You're afraid to make Alderman Vargas look good. The residents of Blue Island deserve that. We need new ambulances, new fire.
Mr. Stevo, can you address stuff that's on the agenda tonight, though, instead of petty politics?
It's not petty politics.
Please.
This is serious business.
I'm willing to listen right
The
now.
hospital closed and you did nothing
I
to
know,
stop it.
yes, you brought this up last month and the month before. Thank you.
The question of cannabis, I'm requesting that it be put on the ballot, let the residents decide what kind of community they want to live in. Perhaps they might want to opt out as Orland Park and Tinley Park did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Claudio Ramirez, and I'm a resident of Blue Island. I'd like to address a few things that have been brought up by people that have come up here. First, I'd like to ask the question that the ordinance and the state laws have not changed. It is still the age of 21 before you can purchase any form of cannabis, whether it be medical or recreational. That is correct?
Not on
It's,
medical.
but 21, period. Okay. So we're not worried about anybody under the age of 21 walking into this place and buying anything. Cool. Now that that's been established, let's put that to bed. As far as our first responders are concerned, all first responders are trained to deal with all manners of emergencies, whether they're recreational or not. It's just in their training already. Call them, ask them, I'll bet to tell you. It is still illegal to be high in public. That hasn't changed. We don't need to address that. It was illegal to drive high before this law passed. It's still illegal today. There's no reason to think that our police officers are going to require extra training to deal with somebody driving under the influence of cannabis. As far as the people that go into dispensaries or the stuff that they're selling in the dispensaries, people are concerned about the edibles. It's all THC. It's all heavily regulated. It's more heavily regulated than alcohol, tobacco, or firearms for that matter. It is quite possibly the most heavily regulated product that's sold, period, because of what it is. It's been demonized for over 50 years. I say we move past that. It's illegal. It's legal in the state now. We can put a man on the moon. We can't figure out where we're going to let somebody build a dispensary. I mean, honestly, it makes no sense that we're still bringing this stuff up. Walgreens will sell you opioids. That if you take 4 of them, they'll kill you. This is Walgreens. Walgreens doesn't have armed security guards sitting in front of it. To think that someone's going to be able to overdose on THC because they bought too much or because they had someone walk in and buy it for them because they're under 21 is the height of asininity. It's just absolutely ridiculous to think that way. I don't want to insult anyone, but it's time we move past that. It's time we move and look at the future. And what do we want the future of Blue Island? If you allow someone to open a dispensary, if you allow someone to open a craft grow, other businesses that support these businesses will be there. They buy stationery. These people got to buy lunch. They got to buy gas. It's easiest to buy gas when you leave your job. You got to buy lunch close to the job. You're overlooking the ripple effect of what one single business will supply your community. Don't be short-sighted over something that was demonized for 50 years. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For everybody, I am Kathy Keener. I got to meet a bunch of you on social media. It's good to hear from you all. But anyway, I have just a couple thoughts I have, okay? The reason I am so deeply concerned about kids getting cannabis products is, first of all, in School District 218, the policy is if a student gets caught with a cannabis product, okay, they call in law enforcement, okay? They're escorted out of school, okay? They don't get a second chance, okay? They're in trouble. And I don't see any reason why we cannot hold someone who is selling cannabis products to the same standards. We have a moral responsibility to protect our kids, okay? And I think we could honestly, if we were honest with ourselves, we have failed miserably when it comes to the sale of alcohol and tobacco in our town. And that's to our shame. We should do better with our kids. It's not funny. It's really not. So, you know, I just think people, you know, and I hear about people, well, let's talk about money, okay? Christine wants to open a store. She's going to make money. The Garretto family is going to open a store, and they're going to make money. They are going to make money for themselves, okay? But if we have a kid who's walked out of school, okay, that kid is in trouble. Or we have a kid who ingests THC and has to have their stomach pumped, and we don't have a hospital anymore, okay, who's going to be taking care of that? I mean, let's face it, Cleveland, Ohio last year, the police had to put out a warning about THC-infused candy that ended up in trick-or-treat bags. I don't think that's funny. And I don't think we should get over it. We have responsibilities here, folks, and we need to live up to them, okay? I cannot, for the life of me, understand why anybody would put THC into a candy cane or into a lollipop, okay, or into a gummy bear or a gummy worm. Okay, why would you do that? Everybody knows that those kinds of candies are designed to attract kids. That's the only thing I could come up with. Why would you do that? Okay, that is what, I mean, if you go online and type in cannabis candy, Bing, it comes right up. Why would you do this? You know? I mean, I just think that we need to think harder about ourselves. It just can't be about the money, okay? It has to be about the health and the welfare of our community, okay? So let's put money aside for a minute. And we've had people up here talking about how much money they want to make for themselves, okay? They're not willing to talk about the social costs of all of this. So let's talk about the social costs. Right? Okay, we are supposed to be concerned. We are supposed to be the adults for our kids. 218 is going to throw them out of school, okay? So this, you know, our kids get sick, that's our responsibility. So I'm asking this board tonight to take a much harder look on what we give to our kids and why. And one other last thing, you know, I mean, I remember how hard Nancy Thompson worked about the mess with the bread in the bottle, okay? She had the biggest horrible mess up there in her neighborhood that anybody could imagine. It was just a terrible mess up there, and she could never get the city council to revoke the license on that business, even though it was a complete disaster in her neighborhood. It is a whole lot easier for Nancy, for example, to keep these businesses out of our neighborhoods, okay, or to let them in and then think things are going to change. Okay, you may change the ordinance, you know, that was just a laugh. Okay, she spent the better part of 10 years fighting about the bread and bottle, and we could not get our administration to be concerned about it. We could not get our city council to be concerned about it, and I think mainly it was because it was a black neighborhood. I honestly do. Okay, but she wasn't laughing about this, okay? She's not getting over this. These are real problems, and this board has a real responsibility to actually think hard about what you're doing here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
For one thing, I'm not trying to own a dispensary, I'm trying to be the landlord of a dispensary, so I don't end up with an empty storefront like every place else in Western Avenue. So that's one thing, I just want to be the landlord. And what else did somebody just say? It's the law. You're saying small, small businesses or the little people aren't going to get anything? The businesses of Blue Island are starving, okay? We're starving, okay? We need money, we need people in town. It's getting ridiculous, especially since the hospital closed. So I don't know what you mean, little people aren't going to, I can give people jobs. I used to have 3, 4 waitresses at lunchtime, now I have 2. I don't even have a bus person half the time anymore. I'm sending my waitresses home at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's outrageous. Think about that if you're worried about Blue Island.
Anything else about cannabis?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I too would like to say thank you. Thank you for hosting this forum. It's very important to hear the voice of the community, whether pro or con, because Alderman Bilotto, as you said from the beginning, it's important to get this right. So I'd like to commend you for those efforts. I'd like to commend Howard Kapari for his efforts from a planning perspective and a planning department perspective. I've been a resident in Blue Island for over 30 years. I'm one of those folks that I can recall a time when we had a bustling Western Avenue. We had a bustling avenue with shoppers. We had a full-line department store. We had national retail chain pharmacies, groceries, boutique shops, restaurants, and more. Truly, Blue Island was a gem of the south suburbs. Matter of fact, Alderman Mech, I used to talk with your dad a lot. Mr. Blue Island, and how much he loved this community.
Thank you for remembering him.
Yes, he was. He was a great guy. You know, times and economies have changed over the years in many areas. Through failed national, state, and local policies, our commerce areas are a shell of what they once were. And given recent legislation legalizing recreational use of marijuana, here we consider an ordinance setting the stage for retail, recreational marijuana shops, infusers of marijuana products, distributors and transporters of marijuana products. A veritable green gold rush of sorts. In considering any ordinance, there's a section that references, whereas the corporate authorities have determined in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city to grant the proposed amendments subject to conditions therein. That's a very important testimonial. As a longtime resident working in the field of emergency communications and having had discussions with many public safety professionals across the country where marijuana has been legalized, with family members, with neighbors in our beloved community, I am hard-pressed to support this ordinance for the following reasons. Impact to the community, to Main Street, to our children. Having a retail outlet on Western Avenue or other areas with advertising, promotion, and long lines of customers waiting to get high, wherever that may be, is hardly a positive image for our community and will impact surrounding businesses. You know, I do like the fact that there are people that live in town that are willing to make an investment in this industry. I think that's very important, that if you're going to be benefiting from changes in this, that you are here to not only reap the rewards, but also address any challenges that come from it. The mere visibility of the promotion of legalized drugs flies in the face of Say No to Drugs that we've been doing for decades with our children. It exposes our children and young adults as they go to and from school. How did we as a state go from an era of Say No to Drugs to let's party? The lure of riches. Impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods. There is a section in the ordinance that requires prior notifications to surrounding areas where a retail shop would be located. 250 feet. That barely scratches the surface of the impact to those various neighborhood areas that will be impacted to those locations. They'll be impacted by the retail outlet, the customers parking, and perhaps partaking. The children and young adults going to and from school, the park, or visiting friends. Also with a zero setback of the retail establishments. We are exposing our neighbors and children to potential harm and compromising the safety of our neighborhoods. How will property values be affected? How will our safety be affected? Again, there are statistics relative to crime. We've seen news stories in Chicago with break-ins, with robberies, with crimes that have taken place. Marijuana has also been overwhelmingly cited by medical professions and addicts as a gateway drug. The processed marijuana of today, from what I have read and been told by users, is far more powerful than it was back in the 60s and 70s. Let's not be naive about the effects of addiction and the impacts to families. Impacts to public safety resources. Yes, there is training, to be sure. But what additional public safety personnel will be required to monitor activities, respond to criminal activities, or medical emergencies? Has this study been completed? While the focus is rightly initially on the impacts of a retail outlet for marijuana use, why should there be infused products and other paraphernalia, and what will that entail? Again, a concern about the infused products and how they could unwittingly fall in the hands of children or young adults. Community impacts of other areas that this ordinance will open the door to. There's been no substantive discussions that I'm aware of surrounding the impacts of the other areas within this ordinance. The cannabis craft grower, the cultivation center, the infuser organization, processing organization, or transporting organization that will have the capability under this ordinance of operating within Blue Island. Each of these categories carries a separate but impactful considerations that should be fully vetted prior to adoption of any related ordinance. There is vetted data from states that have legalized marijuana and documented harmful and dangerous impacts to the environment, air, plants, animals, chemical and pesticide usage, land use, power use, security, and other factors. An environmental impact study should be undertaken. Much like a Trojan horse with promises of immediate wealth, this ordinance opens the door for the other areas cited within this ordinance. What are the potential impacts? Once in place, how would requirements be enforced? And what if they were found to be out of compliance? The Bread and Bottle liquor store is an excellent example. As long as I have been in town, numerous complaints and little effective action. What additional resources will be required? Lastly, financial impacts. Understanding the lure of financial wealth, solving the city's budget gaps, using money to fill its many potholes. How ironic, I know that was used before. Yet with the many legalized gaming machines throughout town, what kind of revenue has the city gained? How have the revenues been used, and what documentation is available? I urge this body to consider the full effects of approving this ordinance. Take additional steps to research and explore the concerns and issues raised by those testifying here tonight. Without taking the time and due diligence, you are putting our community at risk and neglecting the very duty that you have been sworn to uphold, adopting ordinances whereas the corporate authorities have determined in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of our city. In closing, as community leaders, our first responsibility is to the residents, businesses, schools, churches, properties, families, young adults, and children of our beloved community. Just because the state has passed legislation doesn't mean it's good legislation, as many areas have opted out. Blue Island opted in based on some flawed assumptions and a lack of community input. Let's refocus on getting a hospital medical center in town, bringing in new businesses and industries and jobs so we can shop locally and restore Blue Island as a shining gem of Chicagoland. Again, thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to invite some guests that I invited to the meeting to talk. I'd like to open up with Frank Pobliniak. I'm going to go back to public comment.
Can you let Bernie come up?
Oh, she's part of my guests.
Okay, great.
All right, let me go because I need to get some
Right.
people
Could you
over.
also clarify where the 2.5 for the recreational marijuana tax came from, and how much that tax will generate on $1 million?
All right, I'm going to talk about that part of the timeline I'll talk about later. Frank Pobliniak, I'm inviting him up to first, then we're going to have the police chief. Frank's former career Blue Island Police and current mayor of Posen, which has a medical dispensary and I believe a few other things opening up soon. So the floor is yours.
Good evening, Chairman Bilotto, aldermen, attorneys, chief, good to see you, and many residents here, a few residents here that I know from the past. Just retired here.
Before you go, I invited you here because you're a neighboring town that has a dispensary.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
No.
So go ahead.
Retired policeman in June. I've never owned a pot store. Never been involved in the pot store. I've raided quite a few houses that have grown pot, so I can tell you that. But owning it, being involved in it, absolutely not. You're wrong. Wherever your information came from, research it again. Anyway, Chairman, what I'd like to tell you tonight is we have a medical dispensary, which is now recreational, Windy City Cannabis. They're located roughly to 2500 block of Veterans Parkway. They've been there for 5.5 years. We would have been silly not to allow the recreational to start in January. They have three other locations, Worth, Justice, and Homewood. So for us to sit back and not do that, we would have lost out on a lot of revenue. Our first check coming in April should be approximately $24,000 in tax from that. We just added an additional 1%. We could have gone as high as 3%, but we chose that it was better to keep them there than be hoggish and not get a little bit of the pie and reopen it again, revisit it in 2 years. We have a craft growing facility that we will have an ordinance adopted by March 10th because it's needed by March 16th in a 22,000 square foot building. They just proposed a $1.1 million contract to the owner of the building that purchased it from the village for $150,000. So that's going to bring approximately 25 to 30 jobs to the community. The only con that I can say right now that's a legit con was when they opened up on January 1st, that Wednesday. We had so many vehicles parked along Palmer Avenue. We received so many complaints. By Friday morning, we had posted residential parking only on Palmer Avenue from Veterans Parkway to 149. We wrote 21 parking violations, 10 stop sign violations, so there was heavy enforcement there. By Friday of that week, 2 days later, we had nipped that in the bud and we had all the parking problems resolved. But I will tell you, if you do the medical and recreational, just watch for your parking problems. That's the only thing that I ran into. The residents were happy that we did the no parking, resident parking only signs. The security there, they always have 3 security guards, even if they're slow all the time. The owner, Steve Weissman, has been up front in continuous contact with me about future things down the road. So I can tell you, it's a good investment for the city. If you miss this, you're missing a lot. It's silly not to do this. The city is bare. There's a lot of empty stores. This is something good. For example, Chris, you've got parking right across the street from her store there on Western Avenue. So your parking problem's taken care of. There's one example.
Any increase in crime?
None. We've had one ambulance call at the medical facility, recreational facility, and that was unrelated to ingesting, swallowing, inhaling cannabis. It was some other medical reason. No increase in crime at all. We're a low to moderate income community. Our current census population in 2020 right now, before the census comes out, is 5,851 people. So for us, this was very helpful, as well as some of the other new businesses we just opened. I encourage you for Blue Island, because you're in the same boat that we're in, do this. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help you. It's going to bring in revenues that will help you with some of your streets and other things that you need to do. We have ALS, Advanced Life Support, in town, so I'm not concerned with additional training from the police. They all have Narcan experience. They've all been trained with Narcan, and that's more of an opioid type of recovery drug if you need it. But we have Advanced Life Support in town and Ingalls Hospital right nearby. Unfortunately, you guys don't, but there's other towns that help you. So we're all here to work together as a team. Don't miss out on this. Take advantage of it. Do it by your March 10th meeting so that the individuals that want to invest in town, they can be ready by March 16th. So I wish you well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm calling on our Blue Island Police Chief, Chief Bernie Arzab, for comments, concerns. Just like Frank, I just invited you up here. Freely talk however you want to talk.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Obviously, there has been a significant shift throughout the United States with respect to legalizing cannabis on the state level. With that being said, it would be in our best interest to prepare ourselves and learn from the experiences of other municipalities and law enforcement agencies who have preceded us in this shift. I commend the city officials and the Community Development Committee for putting their best foot forward to assure order, transparency, safety, and fairness during this long and tedious process. Some people may be in favor of legalization of cannabis, some may be completely against it, and some may be indifferent. Regardless, our first step moving forward as a municipality is acceptance. It does not come as a shock to me that Illinois legalized cannabis on the state level. As a police department, we understand the challenges that come with legalization of cannabis, and it will be a learning process moving forward. With legalization of cannabis, the men and women of the Blue Island Police Department will continue its dedication to providing the necessary services to the community and provide as much clarity as we can of the new laws moving forward. As Chief of Police, I have been working with the City Attorney, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police in order to stay informed of changes to laws, ordinances, policies, and procedures. This will enable us as a police department to adequately communicate with and serve the community. I will also be reaching out to law enforcement agencies that currently have dispensaries in their communities in order to get their feedback on the impact it has had on law and order. We need to work together with the community on what the best outcome is for the city. With that in mind, training for law enforcement has to be a top priority so that adopting to the new laws is transparent and efficient. Officers maintain a positive attitude about it and remain flexible. One of the mistakes that another state made was that it did not adequately allocate funds to train law enforcement officers about the implications of the law. We need to take the time and spend the money to train officers. I have been working with the city attorney and reviewing current ordinances that may need to be amended in light of this new law. We are also working on making sure policies and procedures within the police department and relevant collective bargaining agreements are reviewed for accuracy. The department is in constant communication with our training partners, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, and Northeast Multi-Regional Training, so that we are aware of upcoming training that will be crucial for our officers to attend. In review of the draft ordinance that has been presented here today, there are several areas of the ordinance which reflect the security measures required, specifically on pages 7 through 12. Whether it's for the craft grower, the cultivation center, the dispensing, infuser, processing, or transporting organization, the requirements for security measures in the ordinance should mirror that of the requirements in Public Act 101-0027. I am confident that the requirements for security measures during the application process meet the needs that the City of Blue Island would expect of these types of businesses. With these security requirements, the state of Illinois has shown a clear understanding of the needs of all municipalities, all law enforcement agencies, and all community members. Moving forward, it will take time to adjust. We will learn from each other and learn from others who have experienced this change in the law. Our top priority is safety for everyone in the community, and safety will remain our top priority. moving forward with legalization of cannabis. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else for public comment regarding cannabis? What I'll do is, this is already getting close to 9 o'clock. I'm going to recess if there is nobody else for cannabis for a few minutes, and then I'll open up another public comment for anything additional on the agenda that's not related to cannabis. So, anybody else for public comment for cannabis?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions for Chief Arzab. Have the Blue Island police officers been trained, and has the DARE program for the students been changed or tweaked at all now that recreational cannabis is legal in Blue Island? Because I know you probably supervise the DARE officer that offers the DARE program to the elementary schools?
I am in the understanding that the DARE program has not changed, that I have been made aware of, and as far as training, we are in the process of training our officers in reference to legalization of cannabis.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is our Blue Island Police Department has not been cannabis trained, completely cannabis trained yet?
As far as the detection, DUIs, and drug-related driving, we have no one that is certified in that.
No one certified yet? Okay. The other thing I was going to ask about, or just comment on, I know that 50% of our Blue Island Fire Department is ALS, Advanced Life Support trained. Is that correct? Or are we at 75% yet?
The fire chief's not here right now.
Yeah, well, I know that from the last conversation, we were at 50% and we were trying to get to 100%. Is it going to cost any money for this additional training for the police officers, or is the training going to be free, if we know?
There will be a cost to it, yes.
Okay. Alderman Bilotto, I know I put out the number of $25,000 would be generated for the city of Blue Island if $1 million worth of recreational marijuana was sold. Do you remember our conversation, regarding the 2.5 Blue Island tax?
And I'll, before going back and forth, it's 2.5%. I'll go over my timeline here in a section, which we'll talk about the 2.5%.
Okay.
But it's 2.5% above and beyond regular sales tax and a bunch of other stuff. So I
Correct.
can't give you a dollar amount exactly.
Correct.
But we passed at 2.5% above and
Correct.
beyond regular sales tax.
Correct.
And that's just for dispensaries. I'm not sure about the other items.
Right.
I'll go over some more of that in the timeline.
Right. And certainly, I shop at Kohl's just like a whole bunch of, I shop in a lot of stores. And in these different stores, we do see products that are being sold over the counter that you don't have to get a license for as long as you have a retail sales license. So, with some of this stuff, you're going to see certain products in tobacco stores. And the city can't add any additional tax to that stuff because it's just a regular, straight retail tax. Is that correct?
I can't answer that question. However, the way this is regulated, it's not like a tobacco store. My personal opinions on some of the stuff that was brought up by many members coming here tonight about the enforcement of tobacco and alcohol, I would have to side with you guys that it's not always enforced correctly.
No doubt. I mean, personally, we've had situations where the police department was called because there was cigarettes being sold from another state, and our previous police chief explained that in situations like that, there's nothing that the police department can do. Is that still correct, Chief Arzab? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no other public comment for cannabis. How you been?
I'm hanging in there.
Good.
For most of the people in the room, you guys know who I am, but just to state my name, I'm Angelo Green, her son. I do not envy you guys one bit with this decision that you guys have to make. A lot of what I've heard, pro and con, I do want to bring to everyone's attention that back in the 1930s, there was a movie created. It was called Reefer Madness. I don't know if you guys seen it. It's on YouTube. Watch it. It's great. In 2006, it was turned into a Tony-winning musical. That it's a satire of what cannabis can do to the people who don't understand exactly what it can actually do, good and bad. I do want everybody to understand that I know there was a lot of comments about the crime. The crime is here in Blue Island. I'm telling you guys right now. About less than a month ago, on 119th and Western, somebody who was that I went to school with, that was the year above me, got shot and killed. A few months before that, the Thorntons on 127th and Vincennes was also robbed. It made ABC 7 News. So again, the crime is here. Now, what I do need people to understand is that, yes, this can deliver money. This can also drive businesses. I work for Moraine Valley Community College. I also want to tell other people, when I talk about Blue Island, a lot of people say, oh, the place that I drive through all the time. That's not something I want to be a part of. A lot of people who go to these other places, they go to Oak Lawn, they go to wherever they need to go, they're going to get it, regardless. Again, not too long ago, I'm pretty sure the library was smashed into when someone drove drinking. Now, what if somebody was day drinking? Now, for me, aside from being in school or being at the house, if I had a child, the number three place I would want my child to be is at the library. What if that was to happen at that time and place during, regular library hours? So again, a lot of information still needs to be delivered and needs to be processed. I do second Alan Stevo's opinion of making sure that people vote, because I'm pretty sure the upcoming 2020 election, you guys will vote, right? Okay. And so again, and then the next thing, definitely getting that hospital reopened. I totally agree with that. That's my comment. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, Alderman.
Good evening.
You're a fine-looking group. Now, is it customary, City Hall meeting to always address the chair?
Sure.
Hello, Chair. Is that how it's done?
Whatever you desire.
All right.
Speak into the microphone.
Right into that microphone. All right. Well, I've heard a lot of interesting comment here tonight, and I've enjoyed it all. Public comment's always been my favorite part of the meeting. My major concern here is, I guess, the 5 hombres that I saw over there smoking a big old joint in front of what used to be DeCola's, which is now Bread and Bottle West. Now, if I called Chief Bernie here and told her there's 5 hombres hanging around out there smoking a joint, is she going to come? Or am I going to have to get out my wampum stick?
I believe
I'm not in any shape to beat anybody with a wampum stick.
I believe it's how the law is phrased, unless Mr. Walsh wants to clarify, it's not outside, right? It's privacy.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, they can't be out there.
They can't be out there,
Not by the state law, no.
You guys are getting tired, aren't you?
We got a long agenda.
They always remember the first and the last. That's why I waited to the last, because they're going to remember me and Carol. So there you have it. And you guys have a good night.
Thank you. You too. All right. If nothing else, I'll go over a couple things before I close out the cannabis for tonight. Couple dates. I read this last time, and I just clarified it for myself. How this progressed to this point. September 11th, 2019, community development. It was on the agenda. There was public comment. There was discussion to put an opt-in vote on the next city council. September 16th, at the finance committee, around the same time, a 2.5% tax was discussed, which was referred to city council, and you can go up to 3%. This is above and beyond the standard sales tax. September 24th, 2019, at city council, there was public comment. An opt-in vote was taken unanimously for the city council. Again, I'm just putting this stuff on the record again. September 30th, 2019, the City Council, from the Finance Committee, established a 2.5% additional sales tax. October 9th, 2019, Community Development, it was again an agenda item. It was continued and a public hearing was scheduled. November 20th, there was a public hearing held at the Community Development, my first public hearing out of this committee. About an hour of testimony, many of you were there, and we referred it to Planning and Zoning, which are two separate committees. At the same time, I had another Community Development meeting later that night. Again, it was discussed in the meeting, and we just tabled it until after the next meeting. December 11th, there was a Community Development meeting. Again, it was tabled Planning and Zoning's decision. December 12th, there was a Planning and Zoning Joint Committee, 14 members. They met with the 30-day legal notice and all that stuff that was discussed earlier. There was about 3 hours of testimony and discussion, and it was tabled to a January 6th Planning and Zoning Joint Member Committee, which passed the ordinance with multiple changes, and every step along the way there has been changes and input. And one member that spoke tonight had a lot of time, because I watched all the videos as chair of this one here, along with Howard, and made some very good changes that are in the ordinance as they stand right now. And so it passed out of Planning and Zoning on January 6th. On January 8th, we had a Community Development, only 24 hours after receiving the ordinance, and myself and the committee felt it was too quick to make a decision at that meeting, and we decided to send it to this meeting. So this meeting is February 19th, and I just want to reiterate, as it stands right now, a lot of the stuff's been discussed, and it's going to be discussed again, but in the ordinance is a location-by-location zoning, meaning that anybody that applies, regardless for any one of these facets that the city has put into the ordinance so far, it would have to go through at the very least the Planning Committee, the Zoning Committee, both with 30-day notices, Community Development, and City Council. So at the very bare minimum, it would go through 4 more public meetings per license that's applied for, and like a few people mentioned, only 47 are going to be given out in the first wave for the entire state by May or June. So if they get that, or whatever the number is, the same point, it's case-by-case zoning. So it would have to go through multiple public meetings for input, yay or nay. As long as it abides by the ordinance, they still would have to go through all that same thing. It's not like the liquor license that we have now, which is controlled completely, pretty much, by the liquor commissioner. It doesn't go to council. The council has no say in approving a liquor license at all. It goes by the liquor commissioner by state statute. Business licenses are held by the city, which we can go down a loophole on that, because I agree with Alderman Nancy Thompson's comments about Barton Bottle, and she knows I supported her, and we should have pulled that long time before it actually closed down. But just going through this, we've met multiple times, multiple public hearings, and so based on tonight's testimony and some suggestions and some things that we probably should clean up in the language, I'm going to task this committee to have another special meeting, and they're probably going to kill me, in the very, very near future, probably, to continue the discussion on this ordinance. So my recommendation is to right now table it, and I'll find out when next time you guys are available, probably very soon, for another special meeting. So that's my recommendation. Does the committee agree or disagree?
I agree.
All right. So I'll leave it with that. We're tabling. No motion taken tonight at this meeting. It'll be very soon, and it'll be posted. It'll be posted on the city, the website, on my Alderman Facebook page, if anybody follows that. I know there's 700 people that like it, but I don't know actually if there's like 7 people that look at it. So it'll be posted everywhere. Not only posted, I'm sure Howard's going to get it out there. And I'll end with this. Howard did a great job. He personally handed copies of this ordinance and the dates of future meetings to Cook County School District 130, to the superintendent herself, Community High School 218, Moraine Valley, St. Benedict School, St. Walter School, and Council Oak. Every single church in town got a copy delivered to them, and a few have responded that they have no issues with this. Moraine Valley sent a letter, wanted additional clarification. I'll add that to the record. And I think that's it. Okay. So I'll close it for a brief recess to go into the regular agenda of 20-some items that we still got. All right?